Here we go. So I'm going to do a little informational on the working dog, or more the bite dog, working dog stuff. We'll probably just start with puppy stuff, what you would do as a puppy, and we'll just move on as needed for that. So for puppies, their teeth aren't totally developed. At 4 to 5 months old, they'll probably go through teething, and during these times you don't really want to have much tug work or anything like that. So if you do anything kind of work with dogs during that time, you want something extremely soft, or even before that, soft is where it's at. It really just makes dogs more willing to want to bite things when it's softer. As a dog gets older, you want something harder and harder, and you just later on you use like hard sleeves and stuff like that. But at the early stages, it's all about softness. And the other thing what you would want to do with puppies is much more items that are a little bit more prey oriented, which means that they move a lot more, or you use it on the ground more like a flirt pole, and you're trying to delve into that. I want to chase what it is, and then I'm going to bite it, which is a very internal thing that dogs really love to do, and it's the best way to start building bite stuff. So with puppies, something like this is a little leather chamois on a little line. You can drag it along the floor and make it look like it's something that's alive. Tap into that prey drive and start to develop the whole bite thing. A lot of people use these leather chamois. These leather chamois are great. Leather in any kind of bite material is great for dogs that might not have a very good strong bite. And the way it works is that when this leather gets wet, it becomes really, really slippery, especially when the dog has been actually slobbering all over it, because the slobber just makes it super slippery. And so when the dog actually bites it and it's slippery, if they don't hold on to it, it slips right out of their mouth. So if it's slippery, they're going to hold on a lot stronger, and because they don't want it to leave their mouth. And because of that, you're also going to start to shape dogs that like to hold on to things stronger, like they actually bite. So it's like anything with training, you create the same picture. It becomes muscle memory to the dog. So when they start biting these things, they just bite harder. So that's why you'll see a lot of leather at the young age stages. It's not that it holds up longer. It does hold up pretty well, but it's really best for creating a harder, stronger bite. Other people use just different like rags and stuff like that. A lot of people use burlap sacks. The thing with materials and bite suit stuff, or bite materials, there's this is what's called jute, and you'll see all this stuff in different biting material. One thing, like depending on what sport you do, depends on a lot of times what fabric you use. Being that this is jute, like in the IPO Schutzen, which IPO and Schutzen are the same thing basically. Schutzen was the old name, but politics got involved and they changed a bunch of things, and now they call it IPO. And it is the most popular bite sport out there. And all those dogs are always going to bite an arm sleeve, and they all have a jute cover. So if you have an IPO dog and you're trying to get the dog sensitized to wanting to bite jute, it feels good in their mouth, that's what you would use. The other reason why you'd want to use jute is because it is it's going to be less likely to wear a dog's tooth down. The more nylon you see in bite material, the more it wears dogs' teeth. And if you look at dogs that's been biting for a long time, you're going to see really worn down teeth. Look at my dog. So jute is good for that. It's better for their teeth if you're really worried about teeth. And it's also something that you're going to see a lot in the IPO. So you want to get dogs feeling comfortable. Dogs can be a little bit weird with new fabrics and new feelings in their mouth, so you desensitize them to that. One thing that I don't like about jute is jute tends to get snagged in their teeth a little bit and little loops start to come out. And those little loops could, at the wrong time, a dog's tooth get stuck in it and it could pop a tooth. That's one thing I don't like about jute. Other tugs, there are different materials. This is called fire hose, and usually it's this kind of fire hose, which is just a real nylon. But sometimes you'll see real like fire hose from the fire department used. But the best thing about it is it lasts the longest. It has no kind of seams in it other than the ends, which is nice. Because other tugs that have seams tend to, if you present it wrong and the dog just happens to get a tooth in between there, you could rip it open. A lot of tugs die because of that. But these don't have any of that seams, but these do wear their teeth out quite quickly. The other thing you're going to see is this. This is bite suit material, most people call it. It first started out using it called French linen. You'll hear it called French linen, but they really don't use French linen anymore. It's just too expensive. So now you'll either hear it as bite suit material, and sometimes you'll hear it called nyclot. Nyclot is just nylon cotton mixture, and it's a very special material. It's very hard to find this stuff, but this is the most used of all the types of materials for bite work. It just holds up really well. It's soft. It doesn't wear their teeth as much as like a fire hose. And a lot of people use this because they may be doing ring sports, which are using ring sport suits, which are all made out of this. All the full bite suits are made out of nyclot, French linen bite suits material. So that's that. So when we're talking about tugs, there's a few things you want to consider. Just depending on the actual width of the tug, matters a lot on what you're trying to build in the dog too. So if you're trying to build a dog to bite really deep back into the back of their mouth, and that's where all dogs bite sports want a dog to bite as far back as possible. There's much more strength in the dog farther back. You don't want a dog biting with the front of the teeth. Now, when you have a tug that's very small and thin, dogs don't feel like they necessarily need to put it in the back of their mouth, so sometimes they'll bite just with the front teeth. So if this is an issue with your dog, you would want something that's much more bigger and rounder, because it's not as easy for them to bite with their front teeth. It feels more comfortable for all the way back into their teeth. And if you're using a tug like this constantly, the dog starts to build the whole muscle memory of opening their mouth and putting it deeper back into their teeth. So the skinnier tug is not as good for developing that particular thing. But obviously this tug is so damn big and round, you can't stick it in your back pocket or hide it, which later on down the road, once you've built all your bite fundamentals of dogs biting in the back, then you might go to something that's skinny, and now you're using these tugs for just really a reward for whatever you're trying to train. This becomes much more of just a reward, whereas some of the beginning of the tugs, you're trying to develop the actual bite and make sure that it's correct. So These long tugs, the difference of longer tugs, there's, if you're also trying to develop a dog from, first taking long bites, like you send a dog from a long distance to the decoy to bite it, you don't want something small because, at the beginning, dogs, their targeting isn't great, could get your hand. So you might want to use something a little bigger and longer so that the dog has much more of a target when they come in and they're running and then they come in for a bite. The other thing long tugs are good for is if you're developing certain bites, like for instance, maybe a leg bite, you can put it down next to your leg like it is a bite, and you can start to develop dogs to bite certain areas by showing, what it is. Maybe an arm, if you wanted to get the arm on the side, you could present it in a way to where you can start developing and showing a certain picture to the dog to want to start biting those particular areas. So tugs that have two hands versus one handle. Really, like a two handle is for somebody that might need a little bit more pulling, or maybe they're less stronger and they need both hands. Their dog's really strong and really pulls hard, so you use the two handles. If your dog is not so much a big puller or you're a stronger guy, one handle's just fine. And to be honest, I don't really like handles too much myself. I like to cut them off a little bit. There's no real reason to have the handles. I don't really play a lot of fight tug with the dog. It's pretty much just mostly used as a reward now, so I just really give the dog the tug and then they win always. So I don't really need a handle. And sometimes dogs will tend to learn that if they travel and they start to bite at the handle, the handler loses it. They want to move their hand, and the dog learns how to get the tug away from people by traveling to the handle. And sometimes dogs just enjoy the bite of the handle, and sometimes the handles can just get in the way. So there's that. So all these tugs at the beginning can develop bite work of how your dog bites, but it also, later on just becomes a reward system. You do what I ask, you're going to get a little game of tug of war. Now, as you progress longer into doing more bite work, you might go into something that's like a pillow based. So pillows, are going to be a lot more wider and depth is longer. So when dogs start to bite this, it feels more comfortable because there's a lot more. It's not just this tube inside their mouth. They just love the feeling of these. And these are great to, reward for long distance. When they're running in and coming in at you, you can catch dogs with these. These are just a little bit better of a reward for a lot of dogs. The only thing is you can't really hide it or anything in your training vest or your back pocket or whatever, so that can be an issue. Over here, these here are leg sleeves, and basically you got a Velcro here, and it would just go around your leg, and you would actually train bites with this leg sleeve. So when a dog bites, at the beginning stages of bite work, the dog bites something, they always win. That's why you got the Velcro in the back. As soon as the dog bites, you can rip it, the dog wins it, and it's theirs. Whereas these are used for the beginning of any leg bite sports, which would be your ring sports, would be French ring, Mondial ring, Belgian ring. Some of the other sports do also teach legs. And when you're teaching anything, you want to reward the dog as soon as they bite. So these are easy for you to just pull off, reward the dog. Whereas like if you were wearing a full suit, jumping out of a full suit's not an option. So then you have these. Some of these are, this is an actual Clin hunting sport. It's a great sleeve for more of like an older dog. We also carry these Euro Joes. You notice the Euro Joes have numbers on it. This is a number 2, and they start from number 1 to number 5. And the difference between them is hardness. So number 1, actually I don't have one here, but that's very small. It's for puppies. They're super soft. Those go quickly. I notice when we get them, they are always gone. But as the numbers go up with the Euro Joe, it basically is hardness. And that goes with everything in bite work stuff at the early stages, super soft. And as they grow older, you go into more and more like harder material. So all these leg sleeves are for developing leg bites in dogs and being able to pull it off and reward the dog for good bites. These are also big ass tugs that are just legs. They're not even, you know, maybe you might use this before you go to a leg sleeve. Some dogs are a little weird about feeling like they're biting you. You know, once you put this around your leg and they bite, that sometimes can be weird. So maybe you might want to use like a big leg tug. You put your foot through it here, and you could have the dog bite and easily reward, and there'd be nothing to do with the leg. Some people use these, but it's not very common. So balls on string. So balls on string are really nice, basically for rewarding your dog. And it's just being able to reward it and still hold on to that ball instead of, you know, a lot of people, dogs get it, they just run off with the ball. This allows you to hold on, maybe tug a little bit, out it, and then you got another ball. And it's just for healing, rewards, any kind of reward basically that you may need to hold on to the ball. Very popular, everybody uses it. We have over here, some of these balls actually have magnets on it. The magnets we have for these are actually behind the counter. They're just too easy to take. So all of them are behind. What you do with the magnet, you can take another magnet and put it underneath your shirt. Here, like you'd have a magnet, and then this magnet would stick it. So it'd stick wherever you want it, okay? Now, if you were doing some kind of healing work and you wanted the dog focused on a certain particular area, you could adjust this ball to make the dog be right underneath the ball. Dogs will always position themselves in the best possible way to reward themselves. So depending on where you put the ball, the dog will position themselves there. So you can kind of develop certain areas that you want the dog to be positioned at. So that's that. Yep. Other ball sizes matters. Like some people really like these small balls because they can kind of hide them more from the dog and then just pop them out and show them. But the one thing about these balls is that it is very common for some of these high drive dogs to actually, when they go to bite it, they could swallow this thing, which could be very dangerous. So usually this is much more of like an advanced person that would use a small ball or a much smaller dog. But some of these big dogs, beginning, you wouldn't want to use small balls because they can swallow those. That's something to be careful of. So we have other things here. This is called a soft stick. It does not hurt. This is pretty much used mostly in the IPO Schutzen. And when the dog comes in and takes the bite, the helper will act like they're hitting the dog, but they actually don't hit the dog. But they're acting like they hit the dog with this dildo thing. So that's what that is. We have whips. So whips, when they make that snapping sound, just creates dogs, it puts them into drive. It's a lot of people use these for creating drive. Some people, it's not as much used as what most people would think to whip dogs, but there are trainers that use this to whip dogs to make them more pissed off. Mostly you'll see that kind of stuff more in the more civil dogs, which means civil dog means that that dog wants to bite you for real. And civil work is where people train these dogs to be more, pissed off and more ready to go after people. So, and that would be more in like the police canines or some personal protection trainers. They may use these whips to piss off dogs, to make them basically hate people and want to bite them. So that's one thing, but normally it's been in the sport world, it's used basically as a way to like get more energy out of the dog. Just the sound of that gunfire, basically that snap really brings energy out. You'll see that mostly in the Shih Tzu and IPO side. They all use whips quite a bit. Not as much in the ring sport. Here and there, some people use them. These tugs over here, and I'm sure everybody sees these and doesn't know what the hell they are. But basically it's a tug that's got a Velcro on it. And it basically is kind of like a tug that you would put around over the top of yourself like this. And have it on your chest. And so what a lot of people use this for is to teach the beginning stages of like muzzle fighting, which basically people use muzzle work for dogs that are either civil and they want to see if they can like get dogs to try to attack people that have no kind of gear on them. There's a lot of dogs that have been trained with all these bite stuff won't bite a person for real because they go down, they look for this equipment. If they don't see the equipment, they're like, okay, I'm not going to bite this guy. But in muzzle work, they put a muzzle on a dog. The decoy doesn't have anything on. They wear shorts, or just a t-shirt, and it really just tests the dog if the dog will actually bite and attack somebody without any kind of bite stuff. But this is the beginning stages of getting a dog maybe to jump and basically muzzle punch you. So by having this, they come up and they pull this right off you, and it becomes this reward of punching you basically. So people use this to develop those kind of attacks. So there's that. We do have an item over here that goes along with that somewhere. This thing, which has been here way too long, and it looks like an umpire's bib, but basically it's just put on there so to absorb that hit that the dog jumps up and hits you with that muzzle. Since I'm right over here, we have a whole bunch of different training vests. Training vests are great, honestly, like if you're doing any kind of drive work with dogs, and what I mean by drive work is more like tugs, balls, and those kind of things. You need to have something that can actually like hold a lot of these things. And most importantly is this back pocket here, because the dog's not necessarily seeing your reward there, and you can kind of reach back and grab it. This is really the most important part. A lot of people also use these for holding their treats and stuff like that, their whistle, whatever they need for their dog. But to me, the most important thing about these things is that when you put this thing on, your dog starts to associate they're going to do some training, and it's just a cue to the dog to like, oh, okay, they know exactly what they're going to do. So, if you do a lot of dog training and you really want to take advantage of the subtle cues and getting your dog to really focus on you, like just putting on a vest always right before you work or certain items you have just cues dogs in. Like if I put a vest on, my dog is just like, okay, something's about to happen. He gets all excited all of a sudden, and I can use that energy to help produce what I want. So we have a bunch of different sizes, different ones, you know, really just depends on what you like. These things here, if you look at this is basically a scratch jacket with one arm, and one arm there is no arm. And this is really for people that are using the arm sleeves, and it's pretty much mostly just the IPO Schutzen world that use these, and that leaves one sleeve open for the arm, and it's just a protection. A lot of these dogs, they come up, they bite, they put their feet on you, and they can just scratch the living crap out of your body if you don't have some kind of protection. So this would be the upper part, and then this would be the lower part, which is just like a pair of overalls to protect yourself from getting scratched from the dog putting their feet all over you. This here, a lot of people really don't know what these are actually, but these are bite helpers, and they're basically a piece of plastic you can adjust and put around your arm, leg, wherever, and it's a way to keep a dog from biting certain areas. So let's just say I'm training a dog to bite right here where that bruise is from a dog. That's where I want the dog to bite. But this one dog tends to bite down here, and I don't like that. So I might just put this right here to make the dog come in closer, because when they bite this, they just kind of slip off. It doesn't feel good in their mouth, and it just helps adjust where you want the dog to be biting. So these are really important for a lot of dogs. A lot of people don't really know about these or what they are. Let's see here, what else we got? All right, so these are bite wedges. Bite wedges are great. They're kind of like a little intro bite before you would maybe go to a sleeve. They're great for just even older dogs that are biting on sleeves and everything, of just an easy way to reward dogs. They're designed into a wedge shape, so it gets smaller and then bigger. So this also helps produce a dog to be deeper on the bite. So this is a good way of teaching dogs in muscle memory to open their mouth deep so that the bite actually goes deeper. The other thing this is great about is that it actually kind of hides your hands behind the bite. Some dogs love to just go for the hands a little bit, or some people are just a little nervous about tugs and their hands being out there where their dog, may bite their hands. And some dogs are just so hectic that they bite wherever they can bite. This is a way to protect your hands, but it's also just an amazing way of building the right bite. And it's a good bite reward for certain things you may want. And it's just different sizes. There's a little one. Here's a bite pillow I talked about earlier. The one I showed earlier was a smaller one. This is just a bigger one. Really better for maybe a dog that's not as good targeting. They might want a bigger one. And these all come in different. You got a leather one, you got a jute style. What else do we have here? So after that, there's a bunch of different things. This right here, I guess, would be probably the end thing for a lot of dogs. These are arm sleeves. You're going to see this pretty much exclusively the IPO Schutzen guys only use arm sleeves. That's the only thing the dogs will ever bite. These are used mostly, probably the most used bite thing in all things. The ring sports obviously use more of the suit, but these are, you got a right or left hand. If let's say you're a right-handed guy, you would want a left-handed sleeve. You want your whatever arm that is more dominant is going to be the one that handles the dog, touches the dog, maybe it has a stick or whatever you're using. You always catch the dog on the side that isn't your dominant side. So all these sleeves actually need a cover. We'll come over here. So if they buy a sleeve, they have to buy a cover to go over it. And most of them are jute, and you just put them on. They're really tight fits. The best way to fit these things on, though, is maybe go get yourself a plastic bag and put the plastic bag over the sleeve, and then slide the sleeve cover on over the top of that, which will make it slide on a lot better, but also in the end you leave it in there. If you're taking a lot of bites from dogs, basically the dogs slobber all over your sleeve covers, and sometimes it'll actually go through and kind of like mess up your leather bottom too. So it kind of helps as a protection way of protecting your actual sleeve. And these jute sleeve covers, they get beat up pretty quickly, and as soon as you start to see the little loops starting to come out, or they're like losing their consistency on the fabric, it's starting to fray, it's a good bet to always change the cover, because the more these jute covers have the little loops and stuff, the more you're going to get a dog that's going to snag that with their tooth and maybe create an issue. Here is a little bit bigger bite wedge, but this particular wedge, it's a clean wedge, actually allows you to use your arm. So you could actually use it like an arm sleeve. It's short. You're starting to see a lot of the trainers now use these short sleeves. They're getting away from those full sleeves for training to just these short sleeves. Here's another one here. Here's a short sleeve with a little bit of a shoulder protector, and these are great. A lot of people are starting to really try to get dogs to do like high flying jumps into a bite, and these things allows you to really bring it up, or even sometimes you can hold it out like this so you can get high flying jumps. And really fast dogs coming in for catches, you can swing them around really easy with the smaller wedges. So this particular thing right here is a puppy sleeve. It's really kind of like, this is a bite suit material puppy sleeve that has a string to it. Because of the strings there, a lot of times when you see something that has a bite material, a bite pad, whatever it is, and you see a string to it, it usually is letting you know